Welcome to the Borgen podcast, the only English language podcast about fictional Danish politics. On our show, we explore the people, events, and parties that make up the fictional Danish parliament on Borgen. I'm one of your hosts, Amy, coming to you from Istanbul, Turkey, and I am, as always, joined by my good friend and co-host Chantal, who broadcasts from her room with a fabulous view in Toronto, Canada. And this is another bonus episode. We are doing 3 bonus episodes in a row because why not? We felt like it. And also we both had a very busy summer and didn't have time to sit down and analyze the normal episodes the way we usually do. So we're throwing you a little bit of extra content. And we did one that was non-Borgen related, but pop culture related. And we are doing 2 on a topic that we've been kind of asked to talk about a few times. And that is the men of Borgen. The episode previous to this one, I spoke about Bent and Philip and Casper. And now, Chantal, you're going to speak about another 3 male characters.
That's right. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the episode. I'm going to be talking about Troels Höxenhaven, Torben, and Jeremy. And one man that we have not covered, which is an important man, is Michael Laugesen.
Yes.
Who we've decided to cover him when we get to Power and Glory.
Yes, but he has a big meaty role.
Yes, so we are not forgetting about Laugesen. We are profiling 6 for now, and we will also profile the men in Power and Glory. So let's get started. So the role of Troels Höxenhaven is played by Danish actor Lars Brygmann. Season 2, episode 3 and 4 are the key episodes for Höxenhaven's character. In season 12 of our podcast, the Borgen podcast, we featured a whole bonus episode on Höxenhaven, whereby we profiled his character in full. He's a complicated character. We first meet him as the Justice Minister and Labour Party duty leader, and later we see him as the Foreign Minister and Labour leader who replaces Bjorn Merritt. It is interesting because he is the foreign minister, and later in Power and Glory, Brigitte is the foreign minister. And when Amy and I get to record about Power and Glory, we will compare and contrast Höxenhaven, what he was like as a foreign minister versus Brigitte as the foreign minister in Power and Glory. So in season 2, we get to know Höxenhaven a bit more, both how he is as a person in his personal and professional life and how he is as a politician. I personally thought that he was a spineless politician who was constantly undermining Brigitte's ideas and direction. In season 2, he was a bully to Bjorn Merritt, who was previously the Labour leader before Höxenhaven took over. Höxenhaven plays childish games, trying to outdo and outshine people around him and that are in higher positions. And he tries to step on their neck, especially Brigitte's neck, disrespect them, and try to override their authority. It was obvious that he was gunning for Brigitte's job as PM and many times purposely defied her and went against her direction. He's slimy and crooked. He once said to Brigitte while she was PM, "I have no wish to rock the boat, as long as we can run the show as partners." And then she looks at him and replies, "Sure, providing that one of those partners is the boss."
Yeah, exactly.
There were other times in his episodes when dealing, for example, with the Somali pirate situation that comes up, Brigitte needed to remind Höxenhaven to stay in his lane when he previously tries to go against her word. And that was a big event that he had to deal with as minister, and she was giving him some advice on how to move forward with it, and he was trying to defy that advice. So it was clear that he had a problem with her trying to advise him.
Yeah, and that was a big test for Brigitte's authority, actually. And yes. I thought she took care of it the best way she could at the time, because there were other factors involved, right?
I agree. And she didn't let this shake her.
Yeah, that was the episode with Krone, right?
Krone comes in around then.
Yeah.
Yes, because she was very nervous about Krone, right? Because he was a big businessman in Denmark, and all of a sudden she had to meet with him to discuss issues. So yeah, she was nervous around Crone, and that was when Crone was coming in. So Höxenhaven later confesses in season 3 in episode 4 that the Labour Party, his party, is the most important party and that he wants to be PM. So he doesn't actually, it's not season 3, season 2. I made a mistake here in my notes. He confessed
it's season 2,
episode 4. But where things get very interesting and explosive is when we learn that Michael Laugesen, whom, as we said earlier, we will feature in the next season of the Borgen podcast when we talk about Power and Glory, that Laugesen and Höxenhaven were friends from a long time ago. And Laugesen knows a secret about Höxenhaven, that Höxenhaven is gay. This is a big secret that Höxenhaven has been hiding from his wife and children, and likely hid it because he's coming, probably likely, from a homophobic background, time in history and childhood that he grew up to internalize these feelings about his sexuality, and got married to fit in and stay closeted, and perhaps that he thought that would accelerate his career if he posed as straight, as so many people of that time and even today unfortunately feel that they need to do.
I mean, when you said, oh, it was a big secret that he was gay, I was like, yeah, even his wife doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean,
in my own mind, you know,
I mean, that's a lot of pressure for someone to keep something as fundamental about the way you naturally operate in the world. To keep that a secret is really a terrible burden. But, you know, and there's also the case of personal safety, which we've talked about in that Höxenhaven bonus episode back in season 2 that we did, that a lot of LGBT people, including myself, don't feel safe to be public, or to be showing public displays of affection, or to be showing, you know, rainbows or talking about gay stuff in front of certain people. It's unfortunately a reality that many of us deal with, right?
So, and that's increasing right now, actually, in the culture in a lot of ways.
It is, especially, you know, what government is in and what storyline a certain government is trying to make subside. They want to bring up and explode a story. You know, I think about, you know, drag queens, drag story time. Right. Like, why is that a threat to anybody? You know, and I see a lot of memes on social media. Like, they say they would rather trust their kids with a drag queen at story time than with someone in the church. I mean, look at all of the scandals that were hidden for decades, you know, and the bonus episode Amy and I just did about the women of 2023. We talked a lot about Sinead O'Connor and her being so, you know, vocal and brave to say that, and people just vilified her for saying that.
And she was exactly 100% right, you know.
And you know, people are driven, and especially this world of social media where people can hide behind anonymity and take one simple thing and explode it 1,000 times apart. People in certain marginalized communities are very receptive to that, and it stings us terribly. And it's not safe or wise to sometimes say your opinion, depending on where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Turkey's a good example.
Yeah.
You know, there's not, I mean, the Pride March has been made illegal, I think, here. So, and certainly there's a lot of police pressure for there not to be one, despite the fact that, you know, there's a thriving homosexual community here. Like there is everywhere, no matter how underground no matter how underground people have to go, you can't deny the existence of certain types of people. Like, I'm sorry, they exist, you know, like, hello.
And they always have been. And if people say now, oh, pronouns or this or that, yes, this has always existed, where people may feel that they want to change your pronouns, and so what? That doesn't have anything to do with you.
I don't understand that, you know, I don't understand the problem with that. And you know what else I don't understand? This is going to sound maybe kind of wacky, but like, I don't understand why we have gendered clothing. I don't understand it. Like, for example, women have been wearing pants now for like 100 years.
Yeah, I think
maybe more.
It was Coco Chanel, right? That really stood up for women wearing pants, wasn't it? In her fashion designs and getting out of the fitted corsets and things that restrict women's bodies.
Yeah, and like women's fashion changed during the First World War because they were working in industrial jobs and stuff, and it was more practical.
To work, yeah,
to have short hair and not wear giant corsets and huge overskirts. Ridiculous clothing, right? And in previous centuries, men wore like frilly lace and high heels and like tights and makeup and wigs and the whole shebang, right? So I really don't understand why in the 21st century it is okay for women to wear basically male drag constantly, if you want to look at clothing traditionally, pants, blazers, ties, button-down shirts. These are normal parts of women's wear now, right? Normal parts of women's wear. But you put a man in a dress and people still freak out. It's absolutely bonkers to me.
Yeah.
I do not understand why people can't just wear what they want to wear without there being a problem.
Let's take it back to the Shakespeare days, right? I mean, back then, men were the ones that were actors touring around in Shakespeare companies.
Women weren't allowed.
Playing women's characters constantly.
Yeah.
And you can't stand there looking like a quote unquote man playing a woman's role. You have to do the whole shebang.
Yeah, that's why younger men were cast in girls' roles, like Juliet would be like a teenager and stuff.
Yeah. And then the other thing I have to say on this topic is that why is it hard for people to adapt to a person changing their name? Right.
Yeah,
so let's say someone is transitioning and they want to change their name and they want to be known by this name and they want to change their pronouns. Why does that affect you? But more to the point, we can accept that Queen Latifah's name is not Queen Latifah. We can accept Ice-T's name is not Ice-T.
Ice-T, yeah.
Hulk Hogan is not Mr. Hulk Hogan. That's his stage. Right? That's his chosen name. So many actors. Iggy Pop. We talked about Tina Turner in the Woman of 2023 bonus episode we just recorded. Tina Turner is not even her real name. Her name is Anna Mae Bullock.
Yeah.
Nobody condemned her for changing her name. So who cares?
Yeah. And women change their names all the time.
When they get married.
Because they get married. Yeah.
Exactly. So the women that choose to change their name and become someone else because you're becoming that person in your husband's family.
Yeah.
Why does anyone have a problem by addressing you by a different surname, but someone says, hey, I've always felt this way inside and I feel more comfortable if you can call me so-and-so. Why is that problematic? It's so ignorant.
Yeah, it is. It's completely ignorant. And it doesn't cost the person using the other person's name anything.
No, but people,
it doesn't cost them anything.
That. I mean, like huge stars like Lady Gaga. Her name is not Lady Gaga, but you have a problem saying that. So why do you have a problem?
Freddie Mercury's name was not Freddie Mercury,
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just ludicrous to me, it's just so unnecessary. This
Ludacris's name isn't ludicrous either. Just saying.
Oh, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure that's not what's on his birth certificate.
Probably not. Yeah, no,
Probably
it's like,
not.
It's so, it's nonsensical. And I don't, I mean, maybe I'm just too advanced for, heteronormative society, despite the fact that I technically belong to it because I'm straight.
Yeah.
That just proves sexuality is not a choice.
Well, that's what my friend says all the time, the Australian that we were chatting about before. Like she says, and she's very kind of queer presenting, right?
Yes.
And she gets hit on all the time by women. And every time she tells me, I get so jealous. I'm like, what? that awesome woman was hitting on you? What?
I know.
What a waste. Send her. Anyways, and she says, it's so nice to have conversations with women. She was saying things like, when she's at a conference, she would rather talk to a group of women because there's none of this, my career is more important than yours as a man. I'm going to trivialize what you just set up on stage in your talk. And she said she just gets so much more fulfillment out of conversations with women.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she
absolutely
was complaining about the men where she's living. And she's like, oh my God, she's like, I don't know why people think that sexuality is a choice, because if I had a choice, she was saying about herself, she says, if I had a choice, she would not be a straight woman.
Duh.
And I was like, well, just hold on, sister, because being a gay woman is not that much better. But I think it's a safer option. I mean, if I had a daughter and she told me she was dating women, I'd be like, kind of like,
thank God.
I mean, about safety and all that.
Yeah, I got a random text in my inbox on Instagram, okay, my personal Instagram account. And it's private because I'm a teacher and stuff. So I don't I have a big chunk of followers, but it's not like public information. Rando can't see me, all he can see is like, this page is private. But I got this message from this guy who's like, oh, I think your picture is so beautiful and I want to talk to you and we could do a video call. And I really think you're wonderful. And like, I really want to talk to you. And I really we could have a video call and it would be so cool to meet you. And I was like, no way. And he was like, why are you being so mean and rude? And I'm like, you're rude, dude. This is not a dating site. My Instagram is private. What on earth possesses you to think that A, I'm available, B, I want to talk to you, C, this is a good approach to, make strangers interested in you? Like, who the hell are you?
I have the answer for you. It's called male entitlement. And hashtag not all men. We know not
hashtag
all
not
men.
all men, blah, 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 blah. I'm so tired of hearing. I'm just so tired of it's feminism is the problem. Feminism helps men actually by not limiting you to be like a blockhead cronk who likes to just like be a caveman.
Yeah,
and be mean
for
all the time.
the men's female partners to become more equal. Wouldn't you want the best for your partner? Why are you in a partnership then? Why don't you stay single? If you don't care about your partner and raising her up and helping her get the best opportunities, if she needs help, then what's the problem?
Or taking her help if she can help you.
Exactly. And admitting that it was a woman that got you here and inspired you to write this scholarly paper and follow a career in medicine or science or something. Why don't you stand up and say that?
Yeah, exactly. And I make fun. I mean, I've been making fun of this thing because of like the backlash against all of this stuff that happened this summer, like the Women's Football World Cup, and that's soccer to people who don't know the difference. And like the Barbie movie and everything. And yes, I'm kind of putting down that certain type of man, the blockhead, angry, I want to make a point about how misogynistic I am type. The legions of dudes who are like normal and thoughtful and considerate and mature, I don't have a problem with them. I like them.
Yeah.
I just wish they were easier to find. And I wish sometimes they were louder. But the assholes always are loudest.
The loudest. Exactly. So let's bring it back to Borgen here and the Höxenhaven profile. So Lagesson, being nasty and unscrupulous, he hired a male prostitute posing as a photographer for Lagesson's trashy newspaper Express to seduce Höxenhaven while they were all at a conference where the politicians and members of the media, including this new young man posing as a photographer, so he hired this man to be with Höxenhaven and
to seduce him.
So to seduce him. So the scene was like what the audience sees is we're looking at Höxenhaven and this man through a window and seeing that they're getting busy in a sexual way. And
so trashy.
Photos
low move
snapped of that shot. So Höxenhaven with the man. And and were given to Lagesson so that Lagesson can use it as blackmail towards Höxenhaven. So as much as we resent Höxenhaven from always trying to covet and thwart Brigitte as prime minister, for those of us who truly understand the complexity of danger of what Lagesson is doing, mainly those of us who are in the LGBTQ plus community like myself and our beautiful allies such as yourself, Amy.
Thank you.
This is truly an awful display what Lagesson did. And now we suddenly develop sympathy for Höxenhaven and the urge to want to protect him, because this is truly horrific that nobody should go through this. So Höxenhaven is clearly shaken up. He's shell-shocked at the thought of him being photographed in a sexual way with a man, and the thought of these photos being leaked leaves him tremendously upset and shell-shocked. When he goes to Brigitte's office, he's looking disheveled, lost, weak, defeated. He confesses to her what's going on. She listens kindly with an open ear, and like a good friend, tries to offer him some solid advice, despite the unprofessional way he has treated her up until that point in season 2.
Yeah, she
ahead.
just puts it aside. She just puts it aside and is like, okay, we have to handle this problem for you.
Yeah, and she acted like a friend, which all of us are so pleased to see. I mean, we like her so much as a PM, we like her as a wife and mother, but we can see here that she's showing signs of an excellent friend.
Yeah, and she's sticking up for him, and she is, not judging. She's unconcerned that this is the truth. She just wants to help him out of this sticky situation, because it's just so unfair.
Exactly. So all of this becomes...
I was going to say, sorry for that little pause. My cat's meowing. If anybody can hear her in the background, you might hear some kitties.
That's okay. We welcome a live audience. So all of this is too overwhelming and shocking for poor Höxenhaven. He takes sleeping pills that he finds in Brigitte's office, and he is found the next morning dead behind the wheel of a car, which has been driven into a ditch. So again, listeners, if you want to hear more about Höxenhaven's story in greater detail, please check out that episode. It was episode 12 of our podcast, of season 2 of our podcast. Amy and I have had some very interesting and insightful conversations that we know you'll enjoy.
Yeah.
And the brilliance of Borgen is that it can develop a character that many feel no sympathy for or like. But when a delicate and sensitive personal matter comes up to the forefront, we can immediately understand their struggle and suddenly question our own beliefs as the audience towards him, and find ourselves sympathizing with him. And at this moment, we actually dislike Lagesson more and more for the dangerous game he's playing in Höxenhaven's life.
Yeah, it's so scummy. It's so scummy what he does.
It's scummy.
So below the belt.
Amy, I have a couple questions for you, which we can answer briefly before we move on to the next one. And one of the questions is, what did you think about Höxenhaven? And did you also get the feeling that he had no morals in his attempt to rise to the top?
Yeah, I thought he went about his career ambitions in a very kind of shady and disingenuous way. Like to say to the PM, oh, as long as we can be partners, what the hell? No, that's not how it works, dude. And if Brigitte came to him and was like, oh, and he was PM and she was like, oh, if we can be partners, he wouldn't accept that. That wouldn't be acceptable for him. He's just baldly ambitious. He's not qualified for the job, actually. He doesn't have the finesse or the public personality to cope with being prime minister.
No, and the bullying he displayed to Bjorn Merritt was
that's
disgusting.
Nasty. Yeah, and that's the labor representative who rose from the rank and file. He's like the last labor party leader who was actually a laborer. And he diminishes his experience and discounts that life experience as being not qualified enough to be a politician because he doesn't have a college degree or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of nonsense. And
it is nonsense because Bjorn was speaking from street level.
Yeah.
Reality.
Yeah. The reality of the labor worker. There are still people who make and do things.
And a
you
lot
know?
of politicians everywhere worldwide don't come from that lens, because a lot of them are born
absolutely.
into privilege and money, and
Yep.
they never had to work 2 jobs to make it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Exactly.
So
That's why someone like AOC is so revolutionary in American politics.
uh
She's young, she's Latina, and she
what's
was
her
a
first name
waitress.
again?
Alexandra.
Alexandra Ortez. Oh shoot. Well, we're not American people. Don't
Yeah, we're not American.
no,
I just see her as
if I asked
AOC.
Americans about
Isn't it
Canadian
Octavio Cortez?
I don't know. AOC, we all know, and we're not American, so don't beat us up about it. If I asked
Sorry.
American about Canadian politicians' names, they may not know either. So
Yeah, they probably wouldn't know any, you know.
exactly. So
A lot of people don't know that Pierre Trudeau was Justin Trudeau's dad, or they don't even know who Pierre Trudeau was,
no,
you know. So it's like,
know that he
and
was
nor would I expect anyone to know a Canadian prime minister from the 70s, unless you're Canadian
right.
and like cared about it. I wouldn't expect a new immigrant to know that.
Yeah. All right, so
Wow.
let's go into Torben now. So the character Torben Fries is played by Danish actor Soren Malling. We meet Torben in season 1 as the head of the news at TV1, and TV1 plays a major part of all 3 seasons and in Power and Glory. So Torben is consistent in all these seasons and also appears in Power and Glory. In season 1 to 3, he leads a strong news team composed mainly of Katrine, Han, Pia, Ulrich, and Simon. Torben is strong and passionate about his job, and he takes his responsibilities very seriously. He respects women, even though he makes dick comments sometimes. He knows deep down the success of his group are in the 3 core women, which are Katrine, Han, and Pia. He trusts their instincts and their ability to get down to the facts of a story and present it as thoroughly as possible. On more than one occasion, Torben has paused stories from being broadcast until sufficient and proven facts and evidence were made available, as he does not want to present false news stories. He is a man of integrity, and he takes his profession very seriously. He understands that misinformation is a great threat to democracy. For example, back in season 1, episode 4, which was the episode I covered, we met Karsten Ockels, who was the man who had been in the military for 25 years and brings photos to Katrine's attention, which proves that innocent people were detained in Greenland, which is Danish territory. He also brings transcripts which show the takeoff and landing schedules of the planes. Katrine knows that this is hot and controversial information and wants to get it out to the public. She's eager to get it out to the public, but it's a delicate situation because she needs to protect Karsten and his anonymity, because this would be considered breach of confidentiality if the photos and transcript were traced back to him. Katrine even asked Torben if she can interview Han, who is an expert in the Thule Air Base where the planes had been landing. There's a scene where her and Torben are up on the roof of TV1 smoking and talking privately. Torben says to her, while they're being investigated, they're not publishing the transcripts or showing the pictures, but Katrine can refer to them. He also tells her that Han will not be a guest to comment, but the PM will come and she, Brigitte, will have a chance to defend herself. This shows that Torben wants to go straight to the root of the situation and have direct comments from the PM and not have information that is muddled or not confirmed. Torben knows Katrine is gold, but he's never afraid to assert his direction and do what he thinks is best for the team and broadcast. Torben can be hot-headed, sarcastic, and funny. Sometimes he has dick comments, but I personally like Torben a lot.
Yeah, I have a lot of empathy for him, sympathy for him.
Yes, and it's clear that he takes his job seriously and loves what he does. Could I work for him? I'm asking myself this question. The answer is yes, because he knows a lot about this industry, and he's very transparent with no drama and games. There's no ulterior motive, or there's no hiding behind words. There's no passive aggressiveness with him ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think even though he's kind of like, got a mean mouth or is like kind of rude sometimes, it might be the journalistic newsroom thing. It's very bullpenish in journalism, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a tough profession. And like, like look at, say, there's some like sexist comments that get made and like, this and that. And like, what happens when Hannah Holm overhears people talking about her like that? She just gives it back. She doesn't care that she's not going to like get all uppity that like, oh, you were so rude to me. She's just like, yeah, back at you, buddy. And like
and
rips
next
guys new ones. Yeah.
Like we're way too busy to talk about piddly nonsense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
by the way, I mentioned in my episode Casper, Philip, and
Bent.
And I forgot to mention the name of the actor who plays Philip, and it's Michael Birkjaer, just so people know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Birkkjae combined R.
You are probably not pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, but I pronounced it kind of Turkish, actually. Birkjaer, like Berkjaer, but it's, I don't know if that's correct, but that's who plays him.
I think people will forgive us. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So yes, I would
interrupt.
Much like the chance to work for Torben and learn from him and train under these top women like Pia and Hannah and Katrine. I think anyone would be so lucky to be mentored by them. So Torben's storyline heats up in season 3 upon the arrival of Alex Hjort, who is hired as the new head of programs at TV1. And we are covering him right now in season 3. And you'll get to hear more about Alex as Amy and I continue our recaps and discussions of those episodes. Alex is young and is a product of modern management, modern management culture, which sometimes clashes with Torben's methods and outlooks. Alex is there to look at budgets and make cuts for getting higher ratings and does not truly understand the craft or have the experience of what it takes to be head of a station. The audience finds themselves sympathizing with Torben, and we feel the strain of this new working relationship.
Yeah, that's one of those Borgen twists where like there are points where you're like, oh, Torben's so annoying. Like, I don't like that character.
Yeah.
He's such an arrogant prick. And then when the tables get turned on him, we see things from his point of view and we develop more empathy and sympathy for him. But I really dislike Alex. There's no way I could have sympathy or empathy for him.
No.
Him in his stupid creative room with all the dumb furniture. Like, what's the point of a chair you can't sit on? That's just stupid.
It's to make you think outside the box, fall on your ass, hurt your ass, and think outside the box. Come on, Amy, you could be so much sharper if we could be so much sharper if we sat in furniture like that.
Oh, it's so dumb. Yeah, it's so dumb. It's just so like, it's so like Silicon Valley tech bro idiocy. It's just so terrible. Yeah.
I don't like it.
Alex he's not a journalist. He doesn't have journalistic instincts.
No, which makes him a terrible leader. He doesn't understand.
He would be better off on a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Like he should be managing a newsroom.
I know, it's hard. And Torben tries to keep up with the changes and stay professional by not letting his dismay over Alex's involvement and power get the better of him. At home, Torben's marriage is rocky and he's going through a difficult patch with his wife. Torben and Pia get closer and they become sexually involved at work, which is predicated by Pia.
Yeah.
Drama. So at the end of season 3, episode 4, she pulls Torben into a very long embrace and then kisses him. I think she genuinely likes Torben as a boss and as a person, feels his pain and struggle with these new changes from management and Alex.
Yeah, and Alex pushes them together because nobody likes him,
Yeah, she isolates.
And what happens when, it's like in your own family, like you can shit talk about your cousins or your siblings, but if somebody else does it, like, no.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's not okay.
I'm sure Torben's team have beefs with him all the time, which
constantly,
they chat about and complain about, among each other. But when an outsider comes in, you become protective of your people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So Pia, and the other TV1 staff don't see Torben's ideas and powers, or she doesn't like to see Torben's ideas and powers eclipsed by some guy that has no idea of the roots of this business. As you just said, Amy, you're in my head. You took the thoughts out of my head. This guy who has no idea about the roots of this business and what it takes to stay afloat and survive here,
Yeah, seriously.
We also see Torben giving news stories on Brigitte and the top politicians that she is working with or clashing with. He's interested in bringing truth to the audience and getting to the bottom of every story with integrity and honesty. Like I said before, he understands that truth strengthens democracy. He is as honest with the viewers as he is with managing his staff. No games, no frills, just good, honest truth. And he is always transparent, and I deeply admire and respect him for that. Torben is also good at planning and organizing and knows the timing of when a story should be released, and that a story can have a very bold impact or reaction on whatever angle TV1 would like to present or play up to the audience. He often invites politicians to the studio and interviews them himself, or rather have Katrine or Ulrich interview them, which shows that he enjoys and gives all aspects of his job. Like he enjoys his profession and he enjoys his team and has no problem giving Katrine or Ulrich the lead.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Again, another awesome man that he has never shut Katrine down in a misogynistic way, ever.
No.
I can't think of one.
No, and he's given her tons of options too.
Yes, and he values her. I mean, there was a point where she left because she was fed up, and he basically came to her begging, you're the best I've got.
Yeah, he recognizes talent when it's actually present, regardless of who has that talent, right?
Yeah, and then go ahead.
He wants to foster that talent, and he has he tells people what they're worth eventually. There are ways he could probably do it better and be a little smoother in his interactions with people, but also I think Torben's fundamentally somewhat insecure. Like his character has a certain element of insecurity, and that's what drives him to have an affair and stuff.
Yes, but I also think he, in my understanding as an audience member, he was at the top of TV1 for a very long time.
Yeah.
And he was in control, and he was running things well.
In his,
everyone
thinks.
In
his
now, all of a sudden he gets that taken away. Of course, it would make someone insecure.
Yes.
But you were saying in your episode, which we previously rolled, the Men of Borgen that you talked about, you were talking about the relationship between Brigitte and Bent. I will also draw parallels to say that Torben and Katrine have this similar kind of relationship where there is never any romantic or flirty or ulterior motive. It's a man with information and experience that is really trying to impart that on this younger person, right?
Yes, who's got the talent to deal with
younger, and Katrine being younger and less experienced than Torben.
Yeah, exactly. And he wants to foster that and
grow it.
Yeah, and sometimes he lets people get away with inappropriate acts, things that Ulrich says, or things that Hannah does that are maybe not above board, but he also protects them in some ways, because he knows they're a solid team, and when they're rolling out something out and they're on, it's really good what they do. So he appreciates the contributions that everybody makes to the quality of the news on TV1. And this interloper Alex dude comes in and is like, oh, we have to make it more hip and cool. Yeah. And with no regard to journalistic integrity or intelligent communication or seriousness. There's no gravitas. He just wants ratings and dough. And that's just so inappropriate in a news channel, really. I mean, to me it is. I'm sure to corporate TV people, they don't care. I mean, look at what's happening in Hollywood right now with the writer's strike and the actors' strike. They don't care. Corporate heads do not care. They don't want to give up a chunk of the pie to the people who actually need it, Well,
I hope that strike continues, and I hope that they don't budge and that they get what they want and have better contracts and salaries and protections.
Yeah, and certainly like the entertainment, the film industry and TV industry is not just all the names that we know. There's a lot of people whose names we never hear who contribute to the making of a TV show. Like I have a friend here in Turkey who's a cameraman, actually. Well, I have a couple friends in the film industry here. And one of my friends is a camera operator for big budget movies. And like when they filmed the James Bond movie here, Skyfall, I think was filmed partly in Istanbul. He was on the crew of that. Does anybody know his name? I do. But like, like somebody who's kind of a contract camera guy wouldn't necessarily get, the wage that they deserve. And certainly, to live in a city like Los Angeles and have like a lower than middle income isn't any good right now because the housing market there is so crazy. So people are really trying to be able to make a living. And like the way residuals are working with streaming services, writers aren't getting a fair cut either.
No, and it's true. You talk about all the people's names we'd never know. And when we did we did a bonus episode about the interiors back in season 1. We talked about how important the interiors are. Everything is important. Why is this office decorated like this? Why is someone's home decorated like this? The wardrobe is so important. And we were saying in our last episode, we have a listener, Jana from Brussels, who was very intrigued by Brigitte's jewelry. Well, why did the costume designer decide to put that jewelry on her? Like so many thoughtful details that we will never know. The brilliance of like set designs and
production designers, makeup, location scouts.
All these things. You cannot have a successful show. And even behind the scenes of Borgen, I mean, we did talk a little bit in the articles and interviews episode we did, but there is so much more that we'll never know that all helps make it so brilliant.
Yeah, that's why the credits on movies are like 10 minutes long and everybody leaves. It's like it's somebody's job to make sure that on different takes, the script stays consistent. Like I was watching, so I've been rewatching The Wire. I've talked about this a little bit in this episode and the last one. There's a scene where McNulty is drinking a mug of tea and he's talking to someone in like an interview room and he's dunking the tea bag and he tosses it in the trash. And then in the next scene, there's a tea bag in his tea. There shouldn't be. Right? Exactly. Somebody overlooked that detail, but
so like the placement are so important. How disheveled is my t-shirt? Where are the holes in it from the last take that we did? If you're going to change my t-shirt, make sure the holes are in the same place.
You know what I mean? Are my glasses in my pocket or on my desk?
Exactly. Like I'm a huge fan. So right now, like I said, I'm watching Succession. I know I've talked about in this podcast. I will watch The Killing. Yes, people, I know it's in my queue to watch The Killing, but the other show,
the Danish version or the American version?
The Danish version of it. I
can't get that here.
IFC through Apple TV. But the other show I love, and I have a little discussion group going with some of my elementary school friends that I'm still in touch with so many years later. We're still good friends. We talk about The Handmaid's Tale. We love The Handmaid's Tale. Absolutely love it.
Filmed in Toronto with Elizabeth Moss, one of our favorites from Mad Men.
Exactly, who played Peggy Olson, filmed in Toronto. So people, we're on a bonus episode, so we're allowed to stray. We're allowed to do whatever we want because this is our podcast
show.
Bosses. So
we don't have an Alex telling us to sit on the weird chair.
And Amy's a lot nicer to deal with than Alex. I will have everyone know.
Why, thank you. And I don't wear male jewelry. My jewelry is strictly non-gendered.
Yes, and this t-shirt, a boy's t-shirt. This cool t-shirt that's got a motorcycle on it. So
mine says Vancouver Island. Cool. Which is my home area. Actually, I'm from Vancouver Island.
So The Handmaid's Tale is brilliant. We love it so much. And, in the Women of 2023 bonus episode we recorded, we were talking about, gender roles and the treatment of women. Is it very different than The Handmaid's Tale? I'm
No.
not sure it is. I don't think it is the treatment and oppression of women. But why I bring this up, I want to say, is that I follow one of the key makeup artists on The Handmaid's Tale. I follow
Yep.
him on Instagram, and I love seeing how they make up these, pardon the pun, these actors.
Yeah.
And how they, draw the blood. And it looks, when we watch it and enjoy it as a consumer, we don't think about those things. But if you didn't have all these details, there would be no show.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's so important. Like, oh, and by the way, The Handmaid's Tale, the novel, the Margaret Atwood novel, she had a rule for the things that she included, the incidents and events that she included in that novel. And the rule was it had to be something that had already happened.
Yes. So if people are thinking, where on earth did Margaret Atwood fabricate this from? It's not fabrication.
It's from history.
It's from history. It's from the Bible as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's taking real historical events and weaving them together into a quilt, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, my cats are arguing.
So I have a good story to share. Go ahead.
But one more point about production design and set design. We were talking about Mad Men in the previous episode, which we watched together at our get-togethers in Toronto back in the day.
Yeah.
Talk about set design.
Yeah.
Without the makeups, the costume, because it's a period piece, everything had to be just right. And they did such a good job of it. Yeah.
Furniture, appliances in the house, everything had to be right.
Yeah. Or like The Wire, the way Andre Royo is made up, who plays Bubbles, who's like an informant for the police and also like a guy living on the streets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like he's got scars and like a missing tooth and like has to look roughed up and
these things have to be very well thought out, or else
yeah,
you have no show. And more fundamentally, and to the point, you need writers to write a show.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Who makes these characters really? Actors can't do anything if you don't have a script.
Exactly. But listen, so I have a good story, which I don't know if I ever told you about The Handmaid's Tale. So I was house sitting and dog sitting for someone in the East End. So like, let's say Queen and Pape area, right?
Yeah.
And so in the morning, I had to take a different route to work because I'm not staying in my place. I'm staying in these people's place. So I took the Queen streetcar to go down to University Avenue area where I was working. And so I'm on the streetcar. I got my big headphones on. I'm looking around. I'm always aware. I have situational awareness, always looking around, of course, for safety and whatever. But also what's that?
Women in public.
Women in public. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course you're looking around.
The streetcar is rolling by and we pass New City Hall. Yeah. Right. I'm just looking out and I'm like, oh, what are all these people in red? And I'm like, oh my God, they're filming The Handmaid's Tale. So the streetcar goes to another stop and I'm just staring at them. I'm moving and I'm like, when the streetcar stops, I'm ringing the bell, I'm jumping out and I'm going to watch the filming. So that's exactly what I did. It was at Nathan Phillips Square.
Yep.
And all these handmaids were there. I don't know if Elizabeth Moss was there. I can't remember. I'd have to go back to my photos, but there was a scene with all the handmaids coming down the big ramp that's there. Yep. And they were all dressed in costume. And then there was a scene where one turns around and punches one in the face, and they had to do it a couple times. And I was just like, oh my God, I am just standing here as some like person innocently taking the streetcar and going to work. I jump out the streetcar and I get to see this. And I took pictures of it and I was so thrilled and tickled. And
that is so cool.
My friends right away. I'm like, oh my God, look at what I just saw. And then another friend saw them filming in Kensington Market. Not Kensington, St. Lawrence Market.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
So, and I know that scenes on University Avenue and you could see the CN Tower in the background. It's just, it just adds so much more excitement when and there was a scene in one of the recent seasons where they were in Longo's grocery store, which is all over the place. But like sometimes I go to Longo's, my mom goes to Longo's, and it's like, oh my God, that's like the aisle where Elizabeth Moss and her character, June, and her husband were at. And I'm just so thrilled. But you couldn't
Yeah, it's so
get that
cool.
authenticity without the behind the scenes people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know?
It's so good. It's like how, it's like how Baltimore is a character in The Wire, basically. Like it's like,
Absolutely.
like in the second season of The Wire at the dockside at the harbor front,
I
like
remember that.
all of those containers and like the equipment and like just the scene, and like the housing projects there and everything. It's just that was filmed on location.
But you have to do it, or else the audience, like us as audience, we can't go there and
Yeah.
take a tour of it. So it
Yeah. You
has to
you
be
can actually.
you you
You
can
can.
you can but you need to portray that to your audience. And I mean, those are key places where you describe the docks and
Yep.
the public schools or
Yeah,
where
the
else.
low rises and the high rises. Yeah, the Franklin Towers. That was based on a real place. And in the third season of The Wire, the big high rise buildings get knocked down for redevelopment. And that actually happened in real life, you know?
Okay.
So there were, yeah. And like it was filmed on location in Baltimore because if you tried to pretend that you were filming it somewhere else, it wouldn't work. Like if you went to, I don't know, Philadelphia or Toronto or Vancouver and said, this is Baltimore, it wouldn't work.
Wouldn't
You
work.
had to have the authentic space.
Oh,
You
you
know what?
have to.
Every time I go past, like, there's a place near here, a port, right? There's a few ports in Istanbul because it's a big industrial hub. But where, that there's always containers and like container ships. And I'm always like, Sabatka. Every time I go by there, I think about The Wire every single time.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I was thinking of when I was passing by Nathan Phillips Square. Like, oh my God, I think it was the fall of 2008. That's when I saw 2018. That's when I saw it, or 2019. And
Yeah.
I was just so thrilled. So anyways, okay, audience, sorry, we've taken it off topic, but it is a bonus
Again.
episode and we are the
Yeah.
bosses, so we could do whatever we want. But let's bring it back to my third man. So I've talked about Höxenhaven, I've talked about Torben. My third man to talk about is Jeremy, okay?
Yes.
So the role of Jeremy Welsh is played by Scottish actor Alistair Mackenzie.
He's Scottish?
He's Scottish, but he
Jeez.
moved to London, England at the age of 18. And now I'm going to read a paragraph from the BBC4 website to describe Jeremy. Jeremy is an internationally acclaimed English architect. Brigitte Newborg first met him in connection with her non-exclusive directorship of a Danish pharmaceutical giant building new headquarters in Hong Kong. Brigitte Newborg maintains a great deal of discretion about her relationship. Jeremy is a man with an accommodating personality and a good sense of humor. He is well informed about international affairs, and he has a great appetite for everything life has to offer. His home is in London, but he got divorced 4 or 5 years ago and has 2 teenage children. So I didn't prepare as in-depth about Jeremy as I did with Höxenhaven and Torben, simply because Jeremy is a brand new character who is not a main character. So I'm just going to wing it off the top of my head and say that the introduction of Jeremy, I think, was quite a pleasant one for us to see Brigitte let loose a bit and allow herself in the romantic company of a man to awaken that part of her, which I think had subsided for so long because of her job as a PM, because of her relationship with Philip, and then because of her role as a mother. Now years have passed, the kids have grown up a bit more. We're able to see her balance in season 3. And again, she's not PM in season 3, but she has a whole bunch of problems, which Amy and I started talking about in our recap episodes, of being diagnosed with cancer and trying to start up this party. She's still able to manage Jeremy. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that her kids are older. They're not as young, needing her attention as much. But also, I think Jeremy, again, an excellent man on this show. And the 6 men that we have talked about in these episodes, spanning this episode and the one prior to this, are all, I think, really outstanding men in their own right. And I like all of them very much. And I like Jeremy too, because to me, he is the perfect partner. That is a partner I would look for. And I'll tell you why. Because he's not threatened by her, who she was as a PM, who she's trying to be as this, 2.0 politician. He's not trying to take away her time of things that are important to her and override that with his presence. There's a scene in season 3 early on when he says, I just want to be with you in your extra time. I just want to spend our extra time together. And I thought, that's what I want in a partner. I don't want someone to say, oh, stop hanging out with your girls' night. Stop doing this. Don't spend so much time on the podcast. Be with me. Give me all your attention. Like, I don't want to be in that.
Yeah, I don't. And it's so immature. People demand, it's just a very immature approach to demand somebody's full attention constantly. Like, what are you, a child? Come on,
But it's funny.
Exactly.
We talked about Jeremy before. We talked about dating apps, and we talked about both you and I use dating apps sometimes. And I'll tell you, I'm
boycotting them now.
Well, I'm on my way to do that, to boycott them, because I just think it's all nonsense. But anyways, a few days ago, I saw an ad from this woman who was talking about, I'd like someone to spend all her extra time with me, or be with me all the time. And then another woman wrote a separate profile, and she said, I want someone to spend all my time with when I'm not with my children. And I literally laughed out loud. Like, okay, when you're sharing parenting, this woman online was sharing parenting. You have your children 50% of the time. Your ex-partner has, these kids for 50% of the other time. When you're not with your kids, how about developing yourself?
Yeah,
you don't want to work out or read a book or see a friend. You want someone to babysit you. This is why you put an ad up online. I literally laughed out loud and swiped left. I'm like, this is nonsense.
Yeah, or at least that's how. People. Dating apps are so. I can't even with them, and straight men's are worse. I mean, do you get any DMs asking you about feet?
No.
Oh, that's good.
No, and I don't get
other body parts.
I don't get the equivalent of dick pics or anything like that. It's
so gross. It's an opener.
It's
a conversation opener. Do you like X sex move? It's really? That's what you're opening with? That?
No, but then, okay, let's bring it back to Barbie and say, why, instead of complaining, and hashtag not all men, instead of complaining about quote unquote feminism and Barbie and how terrible it is, how about you close your mouth and listen to the concerns of women globally since the beginning of time?
Yeah, seriously.
And listen to what is important to women. And you want to be a good male partner to a woman? Listen and try to meet her on what she's saying, and trust her. Trust women.
Believe what they're telling you about their feelings and experiences.
Yeah.
That might be nice.
Yeah. But anyways, bringing it back to Borgen and Jeremy, I mean, you and I were joking in one of our previous episodes we recorded to say, well, where is Brigitte going to meet somebody? Not on a dating app.
Yeah, seriously. Former PM.
I mean, I've been on these dating apps on and off throughout the years. I haven't seen any former, well, I'm not looking for a man, but I haven't seen any former female politicians.
Yeah, seriously.
That's not how you meet people. So the fact that she met him through work, of course, is believable. But I think she hit the lottery with him. But there's a lot of people online that don't like Jeremy. And I don't know why. Is it because he's English, or is it because he's English people like him? I think he's handsome and well put together.
Yeah, I think he's a good character. And I think that because he's an outsider, it's easier for him to date the former prime minister. Absolutely. And Denmark is not a very big country. I've never been there, but it looks small on the map. And so I imagine that the population isn't so huge. So former politicians might be quite recognizable,
Well, let's just give the example of you and I. So you are a Canadian national, as am I. I live in Canada. I'm in Toronto, Ontario. Amy is living abroad in Istanbul. You didn't know some of the Trudeau stuff I was talking about because not because
I
you don't read the news. Of course you read the news, but you don't know these nuanced stories the way I do because I'm in Canada where the Canadian PM is. So Jeremy is not going to know the nuanced stories of Brigitte because he's not there. And it's not there.
Yeah, and I'm following Canadian news stories that are a little more pertinent, like where forest fires are, because I have a lot of relatives in like the center of British Columbia and friends there and stuff. So I'm like following those kinds of stories with like economic stories. I'm not following necessarily like the PM's personal life.
Exactly. But here it's in the news a lot. So of course I know about it. But let's talk about Jeremy. So someone had tweeted, and I have the list of tweets up. Someone had asked, I think I have it down here, something about okay, just a second. Yeah, so our friend at Mary says, she asks, is Brigitte serious about Jeremy? He must feel as though their dinner outcome was used for political means. So let's just recap for some of the listeners that may have forgotten about season 3 and have not been listening to our previous recordings in season 3 of our podcast. A quick recap. So her and her love interest, Jeremy, were out at a restaurant, and there was a dish that he ordered that had pork, and he got violently ill. Not soon after he met it or ate it, and threw up in the restaurant, and it was all over the news. People were snapping photos, people took videos of it. It was all over the media in Copenhagen at the time. And this is what this girl asked, would he feel that it was used for political means? And I will answer that and say no. I don't think that Jeremy is the type of man that's going to be so sort of not micromanaging, but looking at little petty. Yes, petty. And he's not going to say, oh, well, you're doing this because of me. Like it was you're taking this terrible thing that happened to me. Now you're making something out of it for political gain. No, he's intelligent and mature enough to understand that this is a big deal in Denmark at the time. And in fact, when we were listening to, excuse me, Adam Price talk about Borgen, he was saying that was one of the biggest episodes of the series.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I imagine it's quite a controversial topic in Denmark, and it's a controversial topic everywhere, actually. Like meat production is a problem, and I think he would probably be a mature enough person to understand that Brigitte felt like it was something that needed to be addressed. And also, because it happened with her, he was there with her, it became a news story anyway. So it's already in the news. So she's not the one who published that story.
Exactly. She didn't snap secret photos of him and release it without his permission. This was happening in real time, and nobody can stop. I mean, even back then in 2013 or 2012, whenever this aired, I mean,
people were shooting.
Everyone has a cell phone.
Yeah.
Right. So even back then you can take pictures and, post it on what YouTube. YouTube was out in 2012. So, it was something that couldn't be controlled. But I think the type of intelligent man Jeremy is, he was very glad that this could be taken into the limelight, and, behind the scenes treatment of these animals in the industry could have been brought forward, as it serves everybody well to do that.
Yeah, and the reason that he gets ill is because he's got an allergy to a certain antibiotic, which is in the pork meat. Yeah. Now, I don't know scientifically or realistically if the drugs would stay in the meat after it was cooked. I don't know about that, but it's an interesting angle, maybe it's possible. I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
I don't know anything about it, but let's just comment now about Jeremy and Philip and the children and Brigitte. Now, I will say that Jeremy is a great partner, and he never tries to quote unquote compete with Philip or compete with the kids.
Of course
Philip,
not.
on the other hand, is oftentimes at Brigitte's house because of the kids. He's dropping them back or picking them up or fixing something for them or being a dad, helping them with stuff.
Yeah.
And,
He's there when she's not.
Scenes where Philip would say, don't forget to tell that boyfriend of yours. And he's saying it with respect. And even the kids want to meet Jeremy because, especially Laura, because they're at an age where, this is kind of strange that you always talk about this man and he's sending you flowers, but how about we meet him? So
I thought that was
family unit all around.
Yeah. And I thought it was really nice. And also, like, they've met one or two of Philip's girlfriends by that point. So it's not weird for them anymore for their parents to have new people in their lives. And when Jeremy does meet them, he does meet them, right?
Yes, he does meet them. We didn't get to those episodes yet in our recordings, but he does meet them.
But he does meet them. And like, I remember Laura being like, oh, he's really nice. Like, and it is very positive. And again, that's, I attribute that to the excellent writing and the fact that the writers are writing characters that are grown-ups and they're not trying to make everything melodramatic and like ridiculous. They're trying to approach it realistically with some ideas about how grown adults actually deal with real situations.
And how they should be. I mean, again, we always say kudos to the writers, but they don't follow this sort of trope that we see in Hollywood of relationships or traditional gender roles. Like, that's why we like these 6 men so much that we've profiled, because they're all positive role models in their own way.
Yeah.
And none of them are trying to eclipse women, right? They're not trying to flex a muscle the way these idiots on social media over Barbie trying to, display all this chauvinism and sexism. These men in Borgen, they're not threatened by that.
Yeah.
It's
and
refreshing.
To me, that shows that, the society in Europe, as far as understanding that women can have an equal role in society or a more equal role in society and have something worthwhile to contribute in the professional environments in which they find themselves, is more developed than it is in Europe. I mean, than it is in America.
Like, in America,
Europeans understand. There seems to be an attitude, and I noticed this traveling to, like when I go to Europe, because it's so close, right? Like I go on vacation sometimes or see friends or go on trips for school and different things. I notice that when I'm there, there's an automatic assumption that like men and women can do what they want to do. There's no question about it. Like, Women's World Cup football. Okay. So when I first came to Turkey, and first came to the place I'm working now, I'm playing on a community football team, or at least before the pandemic. We haven't really started up again since, but I was playing on a community football team, soccer team, with mixed men and women. And, when I told people like, yeah, I'm a soccer player, I'm a defender, and like come to school with like, pentagonal bruises on my legs from getting whacked with the ball. I took a ball in the face once. I almost broke my nose. And I just went to work and everyone's like, what happened to you? And I'm like, oh, football, no big deal. And like my principal, who's a sportsman, was like, oh, go grab some ice from the PE department. Don't let it get, like, if it hurts, if you can't breathe, like just take it easy, make sure you're icing it throughout the day. Like he got it,
Yeah.
But like you tell kids, like young boys, like, yeah, I play for soccer, I'm a football player. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you don't actually need a penis to kick a soccer ball.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe those two areas are not compatible,
Yeah.
Like, and it just like, they don't seem to understand that women can do stuff.
Well, I think it's also the threat of it. Like if women start doing it, what's going to happen to us men?
Oh yeah, that.
I mean, there's
Nothing.
But that's how minority groups are treated all the time. Like if we give this, these new people are coming, if we give them a job, it's a threat to me. If we let women do this, it's a threat to me. If we let, I don't know, whatever marginalized community participate in this, it's a threat to me. It's not.
Yeah. And people don't understand.
Insecure and mediocre. That's what it's a threat. You know what I'm saying?
And I think it's a bigger threat to cultural growth to limit people's representation and access to things.
Of course.
And like, it's ridiculous to exclude group. The only thing that happens when new voices are heard is things get more interesting and people understand each other better. Oh no. And rights are not finite. When you give rights to another group of people, nothing happens to the rights of the group that already had them in the first place.
Exactly. They don't get taken away. Human rights are for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I will talk about Jeremy one more thing, and then after that, I have nothing else to say. So I'm happy to wrap it up, unless you have anything else that you want to add.
Let's
about
see
Jeremy.
what happens.
So yeah, so what I was just going to say about Jeremy, again, I really like and respect the relationship that, you know, when he was sick in the hospital, Brigitte made time. Obviously, she cares about him very much. She made time to go and take care of him, make sure his clothes were, you know, laundered after he got, you know, sick, and, you know, offered. And she's balancing like, okay, my kids are gone for the week or weekend or with Philip. Why don't you come stay at my place? And she genuinely cares for him. And there was none of this pettiness from him, like, oh, well, I want to stay longer. I want to stay. Even if your kids are there, I want to stay. Like, they have a very mature relationship that, like I said, I aspire to be in something like that, where you're not with someone insecure. You know, they're grateful for your time that you spend with them and your care and your love that you give them, but they understand that there are other aspects of your life. There are other people in your life that you need to care and love for. And if there's not other people, there's your career.
Yes.
And that they're not going to compete with it, right?
You know, I'm fortunate to have a connection with someone that is a bit like that. I mean, it's nothing serious. It's nothing permanent, really. But I have a friend, like, when we get together and hang out together, you know, it's because both of us have time. And when we don't have time to do that, because I'm working, he's away, I'm doing something, it's like, we understand it's not a threat. Nobody's threatened by anybody, you know. And when we have time to see each other, we have time to see each other, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
You know, and it's great. It's really great.
Yeah. I think it's the best of both worlds. But like I said, if I liked someone, I mean, I like lots of people, but I mean, if I had romantic feelings for someone, I want the person to be, you're with me, but you need to keep accelerating as a person, as an individual on your own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of people, they don't want that. They want someone that they can control and, you know, who will stop their life and cater and pander to them every time. And I
don't want that. And I don't want that for the people I'm with. Like, if somebody has a career ambition or a goal or something that they're very focused on or passionate about.
Let me stop you.
Yeah, I want them to go pursue that, because that's part of what made me interested in them in the first place.
Yeah, I agree.
So if they stop doing that because of me, that's
not attractive.
My bad. Yeah, it's not.
It's not attractive.
It's also really presumptuous of the person asking them to change themselves. It's like all these dudes who want, like, I'm into independent women, and they get an independent woman and they try to tell her what to do. It's like, what?
Well, they said that to get the woman, and unfortunately, the woman didn't see that, and so then she should get out of it if she's not happy.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
She can easily get out of it. So let's end the episode with a bit of fun. So back when we announced we were, you know, going to cover the men, I had asked on Twitter, you know, are there any, what do people think of some of the men in Borgen? And one person who wrote back was our friend with the first name starts with G. You know who you are. You often write to us with your thoughts.
Yes.
And Amy just responded back to you.
Yes. Sorry about the delay. You emailed us in like the beginning of the summer, and it took me forever to email you back. I'm so sorry.
Anyways, this person wrote back and said his favorite man is Bent. His least favorite is Crone. The most interesting man is Casper.
Yep.
The DILF is Philip.
Oh, yeah.
And Jeremy is the British boy toy that I also want.
I love him. He's like, I totally agree. I'm like, check. Makes
I
perfect
would
sense
say,
to
okay,
me.
if I had to, and I'll just answer one of these because I'm, conscious of the time and we should wrap. But I would say the most interesting person to me is Casper.
Yes.
And if I was hopping on the other side of the fence looking to date someone, I would date Casper. I like Casper.
Oh, I would in between my serious relationships with Philip and Jeremy.
Yes, Amy, do not limit yourself to one when you can have three.
Yeah,
And then the boss, I definitely want to work for Torben.
Yeah.
Bent as my good friend and advisor.
I'd work for Bent. I'd work for Bent too.
I'd work for Bent too, but I like Torben, and I think for my personality, I like the energy. I would like the energy of a newsroom, and also to work with Katrine, Han, and Pia.
Yeah, I'd love to work with
those
them.
are
I'd
my-
especially like to work with Hannah Holm. I like, she's like my spirit animal in this show.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
Maybe
And
that's not an appropriate term.
another thing I didn't expressly point out about Torben is that there's a lot of men in Torben's position that would not want someone like Hannah Holm working with him or
Yeah.
for him because not Torben, but other men might be threatened by this older woman's
Well,
brilliant
Ulrich is.
mind and wisdom and experience. Torben doesn't have the experiences that Han has.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So that's what to
And-
me makes Torben a star as well. He's not threatened. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
So Amy, what's coming up next? Let's tell the people. So what's coming up next? We're going back to recap episodes. I think we have to continue from 7 and 8
Yes, that's correct.
onwards.
Yep.
We don't have any
Season
planned
3, 7, and 8.
season 3, 7, and 8. We don't have any planned bonus episodes coming up. So we hope you enjoyed that. And I
Yeah.
know some of them are quite long, but we enjoy talking about the show. And also we don't release a lot of content sometimes. So this
Yeah.
will tide you over as you're cooking or working out or doing chores.
Driving to Scotland.
Scotland. Yes. Thank you, Mary, for being the ones that you chose to spend that time with. We appreciate it.
And once
Great.
again, a caveat on the Danish pronunciation. We're not good at it.
Yeah.
We're just not.
Yeah. So
I don't speak Danish. I barely speak English sometimes.
yeah, your life is in subtitles living in a
Yeah, my life is in subtitles. Yeah, I'm dealing with Turkish, and for the amount of time I've lived here, like my Turkish is quite not great. It's so embarrassing, but that's how it is.
That's how it is. All right. So with that, we'd like to thank our listeners for joining us on this long bonus episode. You can check us out on our website, theborgenpodcast.com, where all of our podcast episodes are archived and you can learn more about us and the show. We'd like to thank our good friend Garth Jensen, who recently launched the YouTube channel, Garth's Pop Culture O. And don't forget to check us out on social media. Subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app so you know when new content is released. And we're here and we'd love to hear from you. So connect with us by writing to us at theborgenpodcast@gmail.com or hashtagging us at the Borgen Podcast.